I had 4 companions. Technically 5. I was with one for a few days. He was with us as they were trying to figure out if he should go home early because of some stomach issues he had. But my first companion, his name was Elder Peterson. I loved him to death. He was a pretty good trainer. I feel like in a lot of ways he and I didn't mesh, but that was really, really good for me because it helped me to be able to learn a lot of things about working with people and working with other missionaries, because not everybody is going to be agreeable. You're not going to have everybody see things the way that you see them. And he and I clashed on a lot of things, but it helped me to be able to develop a work ethic as a missionary and to really figure out what I find important about how to do missionary work and what to focus on. My second companion, his name was Elder Ridge, and he and I didn't get along very well. But he, again, taught me a little bit more about how to deal with difficult people. As you go through school, as you go through jobs, you're going to find people who refuse to see things the way that you see them. And that, however, if you're willing to be open-minded and see things the way that other people see them, you can learn a lot. And one of the things that he taught me was how to build member trust, or just the importance of it. His methods weren't my favorite, but he definitely focused a lot on making sure that the members love you. And as a missionary, one of my biggest downfalls was not really caring. I kind of, when it came to other people's opinions, I just kind of shut myself off, and I said, okay, you go ahead and think whatever you want about me, but I'm going to do what I want to do. It's not the greatest way to build member trust. You want to be able to work with people. It's much easier to create peace than to start fights if you want to be successful. And that was one of the things that Elder Ridge taught me, was that it's important for me to work with the members. And so when I got moved to Paradise Valley, it was a wonderful environment for me because the members were willing to work with me and willing to help me to be a successful missionary when I was struggling, and I was willing to let them help me, which I wasn't willing to do at first. And so I spent a lot of my first few weeks there just meeting the members and trying to be friends with them, because friendships invite the Spirit, and that was one of the things that I learned just later on because of the influence of this second companion. My third companion, his name was Elder Goodenough. You heard that right. He's got a little bit of a funny name. Everybody made fun of his name except for me. I think I might have cracked one joke, but it took me a few weeks to feel comfortable doing that. Elder Goodenough was my favorite. He was really, really good at helping me to feel comfortable with gaining member trust. He'd been in the area for 6 months, and so all the members knew him, all the members loved him, and so by extension they learned how to love me. And I took the things that I learned from Elder Ridge about trying to make friendships, and I committed myself to be Elder Goodenough's best friend. And that was an exercise that I had never really tried before. I've always been a little bit of a prideful person. Like I mentioned before, I definitely have not really always cared about what other people think of me. But as a representative of Christ, when everybody's got their eye on you, it's important to care. And not so much that it stunts your growth, but it's important to make sure you're not offending anyone. And I tried really hard to be Elder Goodenough's friend. And he and I were both struggling to work hard. I was struggling for health reasons, and he was struggling just because of motivation. He was feeling like he wasn't getting very much done after being there for 6 months. He felt like the work in the area was dead. And so we were able to work off of each other and keep each other going. Because missionary work is often discouraging, whether you have external or internal things that are making it hard. And we had a little bit of both in that companionship. And I learned how to love him and how to love other people. He also really encouraged me in my planning. And that was something that I appreciated, because my first two companions were a little like, okay, Elder Mefford, like, you're going a little overboard, but he was always like, yeah, this is great, like, let's go ahead and figure this out. We had a giant whiteboard that we wrote down this massive plan of how we were going to split the area that never actually happened because I got sick and we weren't able to go out and do as many lessons as we wanted to. But he wrote out this whole plan that was based off of the notes that I had taken, and I feel like we were able to work really synergistically. My last companion, he was definitely a really, really good guy. I appreciated his love for people. He, unlike my other companions, had been in the stake for most of his mission. And so he was very familiar with the area, very familiar with the people, and he taught me how to take this love for members and this member trust to a whole new level. We would walk into sacrament meeting and everybody would greet him because everybody knew who he was. And he was a really, really hard worker. Definitely the hardest worker of all my companions. He wanted to go out, and he made sure that we were out of the apartment on time, and we even stayed out maybe a little bit later than we should have because he wanted to just knock that one last door. And while I was struggling, feeling healthy all the time, the last little bit of time that I was with him, I was only with him for about 2 weeks, but those 2 weeks were incredible, because he helped me to love missionary work, which was difficult for me to do when I was feeling so sick. But despite that, those last 2 weeks were probably the best. Even though I felt terrible, getting on the plane and going home was really, really hard. I definitely learned to miss missionary work from him, because he was actually towards the end of his mission. He was sad about the idea of going home, and I look back on my mission fondly because he helped to teach me how special missionary work is through his work ethic, and I feel like that's why so many members were so happy and helpful, is because of the influence that he had on them. He would just come in and he'd say, you know, okay guys, like, this is what we want to do, and it wasn't ever numbers based. It was always, we want people to feel this, or we want somebody to have this kind of testimony. And people just loved him for it. And I saw how love and missionary work are totally interconnected. And if you want people to come unto Christ, you have to help them feel loved.